There's a brand new disaster movie on Netflix with a stacked cast. Let's talk about it. Peace, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. It's the Reaction Overlord. We're back with another video. Alright, so let's talk about this new movie on Netflix called Leave the World Behind. Now, this is one of those movies that they say that gives predictive programming because there's a lot of conspiracies surrounding this movie, especially being as though that the Obamas had produced this movie, and you got a lot of conspiracies surrounding the Obamas and the Clintons and all that. But I found this movie to be real intriguing. One, because, like I said, you had a stacked cast. You had people like Julia Roberts, Ethan Hawke, you had Kevin Bacon, you had Marshala Ali. This movie was stacked, even though it had such a short cast. Before we begin, this video is going to contain some major spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to get spoiled, now is your time to turn away. And for everybody else, let's get started. So the movie starts off with Julia Roberts' character, Amanda Sanford. She's looking out the window outside of her bedroom while her husband, Ethan Hawke's character, Clay, he was sleeping. He wakes up and she told him that she started packing, that she rented out an Airbnb right outside the city, not too far from the city, but far enough from everybody else. It's funny because when I was sitting there thinking about it, I'm like, it must be nice to be able to just up and just rent the Airbnb outside of the city and just travel whenever you want to. It must be good to have that type of money. They pack up their kids, Archie and Rose. And Rose, the daughter, she has this crazy obsession with the show Friends. I remember I used to like that show back in the day, but she's a crazy fan. She said that she was just about to watch the last episode of Friends because she wanted to know what happened between Ross and Rachel. But her being a young girl, I know how it is. The parents not really listening to her. So Ethan Hawke, he told her that we'll just check it out later on. So they got to the house and they checked it out, and it was a big old crib. And Amanda said that it must be one of those tech type guys because the house featured a lot of fancy details. So Amanda, she went to the market in town because she said she wanted to pick up some groceries while they out there. And while she was out there, she stumbled across Kevin Bacon's character's Danny, who she seen packing his truck with a whole bunch of waters and non-parachutes and just equipment, just a whole lot of survival stuff. Now, me personally, if I seen something like that, being as though I'm traveling somewhere in a small town, you got a bunch of locals, and I see a local doing something, I would be thinking to myself, like, maybe I should do something because maybe he knows something I don't know. But she's looking, and he turned and looked at her, and she just went on about her business. And everything seemed cool. Kids were swimming in the pool. Clay and Amanda seen deer while it was outside in the backyard. And then they went to the beach. And that's when things got crazy because Rose, she noticed a oil tanker ship far out in the ocean, and she said it looked like it's getting closer. But Clay, being a dad, he just shoved it off like, well, it must be some type of port around here somewhere. The ship was aiming towards the beach, not sideways. Had it been sideways, I would have thinking, all right, maybe they traveling to a port that's nearby. But it was coming towards the beach, so I would have been looking at it the whole time. But they didn't. It seemed like time went past and he was asleep. Then Rose said that the ship was getting closer. That's when Julia Roberts started noticing it, and she woke up Clay. And he like, well, it can't get here, right? It got to stop. But it didn't stop. They realized that it wasn't going to stop, and they got up and just start running. And as they start running, the ship start coming into the beach, and all the other people start running as well until it finally came to a halt and stopped. And as they got back to the house, they heard news that it was some type of electrical navigational failure. That's why the ship had landed on the beach. And then later on that night, in the middle of the night, George and his daughter Ruth, they showed up to the house. And George, he was acting all suspicious and everything. And Amanda, she wasn't having it. Instead of just saying flat out, like, hey, I'm George, I'm the one you rented the house from. Something is going on in the city. We felt safe if we wouldn't just come back home. They just acting all suspicious about it, which made Amanda second guess everything. And she already don't like people. And I was seeing a lot of people talking about this because people were saying that she was just being racist. And when I first was looking at it too, I'm like, well, damn, like you are harsh, but when you think about it, a strange person show up at an Airbnb that you just so happen to be staying at in the middle of the night, acting strange at that. I don't want to bring a race car, but look at the house they were staying in, and George and Ruth, black people. So most people would think that that's not their house, and they had no pictures of themselves or anything like that. But Clay, he let them in and everything, and he said that it was a power outage in the city, so that's why they came back home. They felt safe to come back there, and Amanda was like, "Well, we can't leave. How you going to try to kick us out?" And he was like, "Well, we'll just refund you your money back. This house is big enough. We got a guest study. We'll just stay down there and wait until the morning to see what news that we can find out of what's going on." He gave him $1,000. So reluctantly, Amanda agreed, and Ruth and George they stayed in the guest study. Then the next day, the same thing was happening. Still no communication with the outside world. Still no internet. Still no signals. Still nothing. Well, George said that he was going to go to his neighbor house who lived down the road so he can try to see if they may know something that was going on. So he goes there while Clay traveled to town to see if he can find any information there. And while George was at the neighbor's house, it was like soaked. It was like a flood. It was at the house and the area and everything. So he started walking towards the back and going towards the beach, and he just see like all this debris, and he see like a watch in the sand, and he go to pick it up, and it was actually an arm that was like severed off from a person. He started noticing it was a bunch of bodies and material from planes and everywhere. And as you look in the landscape scene, you can just see that it was a bunch of planes that just crashed onto the beach, and a bunch of people had died. And then, as he was looking, a plane started coming down. So he started running, and he falling and everything, but he got up. And as the plane plummeted into the ocean near the beach, he ran into the house, and the water started coming up, and they crashed into the windows where he was at. And Clay, he was riding through the road, and he ran into some Spanish lady who was like real frantic, and she was speaking to him in Spanish. You can tell she didn't speak no English, and it seemed like she was asking him for help, but he was like he don't know what's going on, like he don't understand. And you think that he was going to help her, but after a while, he just drove off. He kept going, and then he seen like some type of drone in the air that was shooting out like this red stuff. And at first, I thought it was like blood, but as it got close, you can see it was like these flyers, these red flyers, and it was coming down on top of him in the car. And Clay he started panicking. And there was also this scene where you just heard this random noise out of nowhere, and it was so loud that it was hurting everybody's ears. They started holding their ears, and the next day, his son Archie he woke up and his teeth started falling out. And they thought that he might have had malaria or something like that because he had got bitten early on in the movie. But kind of find out once Clay and George go to the neighbor Danny house, who's Kevin Bacon. They was talking to him. They was saying that they need help because Kevin Bacon, like I said, he was a survival prepper, and he had all these provisions and everything set for the situation. So Clay was telling him about his son and his teeth was falling out, and Kevin Bacon, he was like, well, maybe it has something to do with that noise because it was like some type of radiation frequency that attacked people, and some of the side effects is your teeth fall out. And Kevin Bacon, he had put out a gun on him. He was like he was about to attack him, but Clay, he begged him, and George put out a gun on him, and it was like a standoff. But Clay was like, "Look, I'll give you the money. Money might be the only thing we got right now." And then eventually, Kev, he was like, "All right," and he gave him the stuff, and they got in the car as it was leaving. George, he was telling him like, "Look, how far you gonna be in with me? Because through my work, I'm in contact with a whole lot of powerful people, and my client, he was telling me that something like this might happen, and basically it was like a breakdown of a country. First, you take out the communication system, then you disrupt them with unorganized chaos. the sound frequency and the flyers because Kevin Bacon said that he seen some in Mandarin and then they seen some in another language. So it was just to confuse everybody else, especially because there's no communication. So no one knows what was really going on. And he said the last stage is if everyone was dysfunctional enough, we'll do it ourselves, which is civil war. And that's exactly what was going on. Prime example how Kevin Bacon had pulled out a gun on him and everything, saying that you thinking like the old ways. Now you gotta think like the new ways, survival pretty much. It was pretty much the beginning of civil war, a societal collapse in the country. And when Ruth and Amanda was in the forest, they looked from afar and they seen bombs dropped in the city and everything. And they were standing there looking at horror. And the final scene was the daughter Rose, she had found the neighbor's rich house and they had like some type of bunker. And I believe that was the same bunker that Danny was telling them about that maybe they need to get there. They had everything down there that you can possibly need to survive. One thing they did have that Rose wanted was a collection of DVDs, and they had Friends, and she popped it in and started watching it, and it went off. The end was kind of iffy because it just leaves you like, huh, what was that? But there was a lot of things in that movie that just had you questioning. Like one, I didn't mention about the deer. The deer start showing up, and he starts showing up a lot, and then towards the end it seemed like the deer was going to attack Ruth, and Amanda came, and they both started screaming at the deer, and it was like the deer eventually ran off. Like I don't know what was going on with that, but all in all, I thought it was a good movie. I give it a 7 out of 10, probably because just the way it ended, and due to the simple fact that I understand they had budget reasons, so you can't really show a whole lot, but it could have been just a little bit better, but it kind of gave me that M. Night Shyamalan, Jordan Peele vibe to the movie. So that's why I really liked it. It seemed like it was the beginning of that movie that's coming out next year, Civil War. Overall, I thought it was a pretty decent movie. That's all I got for now, guys. Let me know what y'all think. Drop your comments down below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell. I'll see y'all the next one. Peace.